Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will just do a very quick one on this because it's politics. We got to do politics as it is deserved. So I just came across a video that the Minister of Information, Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, went on a big rampage on Talib Ahmed Bensouda. And a couple of things he had said in that interview with Peter Gomez is to say that, Talib is arrogant and he's a coward. And of course, he's lazy and a lot more. But I will focus on just these three. And he equally did make mention that to claim that he has been tested in the local government structures, is inconsistent to the realities by saying that probably, Jammeh and Jawara equally got experiences. Now, this is either deliberate, distortion of facts or he himself being lazy. But here I want to tell you two things. There are two things that we need to understand in two personalities that we are dealing with. And first, let's start with arrogance. Now, Ismaila said Talib is arrogant simply because he said Barrow should not go for a third term. He is arrogant simply because he said in his own, belief, Talib have in his mind that Hussein Dabo should not be the flag bearer of the United Democratic Party. Of course, this is not anything that Talib would have said personally, but this is what Dr. Ceesay is inferring, that from his own belief, this is what he thinks is in the head of Talib. And for one to think that another person should not run for office is actually arrogance. I don't understand what that means to be arrogant, because for me to say, probably Barrow should not run for a third term means I am arrogant. Gambia. Any opposition can say anything to the other, and it could be tolerable, but not from the regime. Because the hypocrisy from the regime and its associates and the lack of foresight within this government, their manipulation, lies and deceit, and the shamelessness of this said minister to actually take an NPP post or rebuttal about, Unite's claim to post it in the government of the Gambia page on Facebook is outright disregard for, respect for our country. And that alone speaks to his shamelessness and of course utter disgust and hatefulness among other things. Now, one thing about this person is that if you tell us that Talib is arrogant, bro, Barrow is clueless. What is more insulting? What is more arrogant? What is more rude to all of those statements that Ismaila Ceesay made in this country? And a lot of people, one thing they do not understand, I'll give you the genesis of how, some of these folks come together to actually even form a political party. When Jammeh lost elections in that December poll in 2016, among the people who organized the conference at the, UTG Faculty of Law was, this said, professor. Now, in that conference, it was discussed on why Jammeh would say he will not leave and all of that. And all of a sudden, these folks who organized the event went to the hotel where Barrow was. And before some of us who were in that conference realized, we just saw them taking photos with Barrow. You know what they were doing? They were doing eye service to be recognized. They actually organized a conference for recognition seeking. And when Barrow actually picked his first cabinet in 2017, this guy did not see himself in that cabinet. You know what he did? He called a group of young people and they met at La Parisans. I remember it was either on the 3rd of February 2017 because I had to go and drop a close friend of mine there. We were out and I had to go drop him there. And I wonder what was there that he needed me to drop him there. So I drove there and then dropped this guy. And I was out of curiosity. I got off the car and then just looked around inside. I was like, what's going on here? They actually sat there to say that the cabinet that was picked by the regime that just came into power was not youth-friendly. Who is the youth? Him? Because it did not bear his name, therefore he turned around to become a big antagonist of the regime, the biggest critique of Barrow, to a point that you even call him clueless because he did not appoint you. And now that he appointed you, you will insult anybody and everybody for that position, because you insulted even the president to get that position, and now you got it, you will insult anybody and everybody to actually remain there. No, there is no arrogance bigger than sitting and watching on a national TV to tell a sitting president that he is clueless. And that person still tolerates you. And just for Talib to say Barrow should not run for a third term, that is actually arrogance. Do you really understand what arrogance is? I have not seen anybody that I have worked with within the University of the Gambia space who is as arrogant as Ismaila Ceesay. Another scenario is that there was a time he said he actually brought in himself as being part of a university governance system. Therefore, he also has experience. But let me tell you what this guy got experience in. Because you want to bring us politics, let's do politics. At one time, Ismaila Ceesay was, it was the president of, the staff association. And he wrote an email when Jammeh lost elections to actually write that, of course, either, from a pact of influential lecturers, and then, of course, either classes would cease or something would happen or university student would not go. At the time, he was still serving as the staff association president. Now, we had a meeting, the staff association, and one of our ancillary staff, a driver tried to correct Ismaila Ceesay by telling him that before you actually wrote that letter, you should have waited until we had this meeting, and after this meeting, the decision of the staff should be what you should have written, because anything you write without the staff would actually be interpreted as a message from the staff, because you cannot distinguish you as a person from the staff association. And you know what his response was? And this was very true to come from a driver. But of course, being a driver, Ismaila did not feel that a driver should correct him. He said to this driver that he did not know how much he was even paid at the university. And he was doing that for us. He was doing us a favor by being a staff association president. Look at arrogance and ignorance and outright disrespect for colleagues. And in that meeting, I nearly fought with one of his little toddlers at the time, who really now would not want to be associated with him. Because I looked at him in the face and said, look, what this guy is saying is the truth. You should not in any way write a message that actually does not represent the staff. And because the person was trying to correct you in that regard, you looked at him simply because he is a driver, and you said, oh, I don't even know how much I am paid in this university, trying to actually show that he's a rich man, but this is a person who went to the IEC with just $20,000 in his account, pretending to be somebody who's got money, and of course arrogantly responding to a driver telling him that, oh no, I don't even know how much I'm paid in this university. I am doing this for you people. You're doing us a favor. If the university pays us $1, you lose $1. You're going to pay $5, you lose $1. And then telling us that, oh, I don't even know how much I am paid here. What is more arrogant than that? This is a person who still have the guts to tell another person, because they said, oh no, Barrow should not go for a third term. You said they are arrogant. Yo, we are arrogant. You are one of the most arrogant persons I've ever seen in any intellectual space. And of course, your intellectual dishonesty and banditry and criminality is out in the open, because Ismaila Ceesay, if you tell us that Talib is not somebody to actually vote for, you think you're a person to vote for, who was actually a staff of the University of the Gambia, at the same time a vendor for that same university, conflict of interest, and of course abuse of office. Yo, yako fi don def de. Wala dang koy weddi. Si weri ko lan nekade lolen fi wedi rek ñu tegal len ay affaire. You cannot be a staff of the university and at the same time a vendor for that university. Tell us how some of your little toddlers and boys got admission into the university fraudulently when they did not even meet the admission criteria. Mane, I know ñu bayante. Yo mënulo xas Talib ci biir Gambia. And then trying to be that Judas, trying to make it look like, oh, Bugun Usainu Dabo to. Do you think you want Usainu Dabo to run for president? You? When Usainu Dabo needed you, you went and ran to Barrow. And of course, went and hold meetings with him. You claim to be an intellectual who was deceived and of course manipulated by Sirinjai. He brought you and your team and of course put the cameras on you, and you start looking as if you don't know what you were doing at the State House, because you wanted a partnership, and he wrote a letter to make it look like you actually came and joined them. yow lañ fi nax comme xale bu ndaw yow da nga mun a xas Talib. It is the same you who had no money to organize your Congress. Sidinjai again gave you, NPP gives all its partners $100,000 to run their congresses. Banyal? Can you deny it? No, you can't. Can you tell us how some of your fraudulent kids actually got admission into the University of the Gambia? If we are talking about honesty, sincerity, and love for nation. And if we are talking about arrogance, tell us that the driver could not tell you that what you did was wrong and you could have done it better. When we are talking about arrogance, nobody is as arrogant as you, a state minister who sits on TV to insult other citizens because of their opinions. Why yo Talib bu bonné du demba yow ya waxone yow advice am yow kan mo fi dekk ci dekk Gambia fi ni ku saga president Barrow melni yow koku mo meuna wax ñeneen ni they are arrogant and trying to buga mix the UDP and of course UMC lena de xamna ko. A dead Talib will be preferred by UDP over you because when UDP needed you, what did you do? Did you support them? You did not. You pretentiously and hypocritically said that you were neutral, but of course, while on the ground, you were going and having meetings with Barrow. So you are one of the most dishonest politicians this country has ever seen. You are one of the most dishonest academicians I've seen in this country. Munulo Hasken. You are one of those fraudulent people who actually got fraudulent admissions to certain people at the University of the Gambia. The same person who was serving as a staff of that same university and turning around to be a vendor of that same university. Nothing is more fraudulent and criminal than all of those activities. And then to turn around to say that Talib is a coward, he should resign from the UDP. Bro, do you know why you had to pause and of course postpone over and over the CA, Congress that was to happen because you know they were about to impeach you and remove you because of your inconsistency and dishonesty. And you had to maneuver your ways to retain those positions. So don't tell us about cowardice because the biggest coward here it's you. It's not what to be, We could spare other oppositions and trying to cajole the opposition to come together. But where we see people from the regime trying to attack people within the opposition, we will tell you who really some of you are. Not only about your intellectual dishonesty, money. Let's talk about the graduate assistant appointment that you fraudulently wanted to actually, do dubious. Simply because those that are your favorites or your boys, those who are praising you every day, did not have probably they have the requirements, but there were other people who did better than them in those interviews and they were supposed to be appointed. And then you wanted to actually, go for kartai, purjeli yo sa boy, you definitely graduate assistant. We know all of that. And you did everything you could to make sure that those boys you were actually, imagine somebody coming out third in an interview. Ngane ku jël first ak second duñ jël ñooñu noonu. Yow sa third bi la ñoo jël. Lolu did you fi ko bandi, did you go, you take some of our national institutions as your personal assets. And this is why people got to talk about some of you because gis nga nit no ko munti bañ. No matter how hateful you are towards Talib, the young man is very calm and composed. Do ko musa dega mune Barrow you are clueless. Kaddu mi yep si yar ak tegin la koy teg. Yow mënoo xas kooku. Whatever you can brag with is basically, of course, you went to school, you taught in a university. But of course, led some fraudulent activities within the same institution. Turn around, of course, said everything about the regime simply because you wanted the position. Why did you say the regime's cabinet, first cabinet, was not youth-friendly? Because you were not in it. You went ballistic on the regime, rampage, saying all kind of things about Barrow. Barrow was terrible, he was bad, he was clueless, he knows nothing. But when he appointed you, Barrow is the best and he should run for a third term. And you are a political science professor who believes in, democracy, term limit and all of that. Why would they actually not get the new constitution in? But it's the same you who now said that for somebody to even say Barrow should not run for a third term, that is arrogance. Is there anybody more arrogant than you? Is there anybody in the political space in the Gambia more arrogant than Ismaila Ceesay? Kula wax dara nga dem si radio bi saga len ba nga doyal nga melni comme like a little escaped rat from somewhere. that you have no respect for institutions, that you have no respect for our nation, you have no respect for our government. Because to take, an NPP nonsense document, to actually post it on an official page of the government of the Gambia, on a ministry, shamelessly could not even delete it. And then you went back again trying to actually insult Talib to tell us that he is arrogant simply because, in your own view, he wanted to be the UDP flag bearer and does not want Dab, and you think it is a UDP calling Talib Jahase no pur wali afuha ebe tonyala ite mi fotenting wala mukute ay alanga tonya fo Gambia fotata tembol to mi yalon ko be tonyala fola nyue moli min long ebe deringa kambola fola, because this year people will do everything to tell the truth to the people, because staying out of politics is not the right thing. We got to speak the facts to people. Yo boy, you bari yo hamantana ñu ngi fi di len defend on the Facebook. Some of them one credit line fi am high school, yena len yobu university. How did they get there? If not through fraudulent activities. Is there anybody more fraudulent than a person like you? Is there any person who is as arrogant as you, who actually tried to even belittle a driver telling us that you don't know your salary at the University of the Gambia, which is a blatant lie? Even if you don't need the money, because I know that was just in your braggadocio moment trying to make it look like, oh, you don't even need the money, so therefore whatever you do there, you were doing it for us, when in reality that's not the fact. And then when somebody tried to put you on the right place simply because he's a driver, you felt, oh no, imagine who is putting me in my place. And then you actually got very angry and tried to make it look like, oh, I don't even know how much I'm paid here, I'm doing this for you, as if you were doing us a favor. You did us no favor. Dude, calm down. When the government came into place, imagine government that came into, I don't know if the election was December 5th or December what or whatever it was, but imagine December and between December and February. Because by February 3rd, how could somebody actually claim that the government or, the cabinet was not youth friendly, because he was expecting a cabinet position, thinking that by organizing that conference and of course trying to push the university to go out of lecture was actually a way to actually buy into. One thing that Gambians must know, Ismaila is at the peak of his career, because this is his biggest ambition was to become a minister, not a head of state. And that is why he would insult anybody and everybody, including Barrow, to get to that position. And when he gets there, he will now insult anybody and everybody to retain that position, because that has always been the peak of his ambitions. His ambitions are not bigger than that. Because from the beginning, before he even formed this party, the first day those people actually met at La Parisans in that whatever restaurant opposite the American embassy, what they said there was simply because the cabinet was not youth friendly. So youth in that regard, they were referring to, probably they did not appoint Ismaila Ceesay. And of course, we are going to form a political party and probably he's going to lead it. He is not leading it because something was fundamentally wrong with the government. There was nothing that he could say, okay, they did something wrong. Because by February, a government that came into place in, let's say, either January 18th or somewhere, because after December election, I don't know when the government came into place. In less than 2 months, you said that government was not youth friendly, and then you started attacking them simply because they did not appoint you. His issues are always personal, and it's never about the country. And that is why Kumfi Giselek Dunalen Saga. I know you got your little toddlers and boys who basically, when we started Who Killed the Cops, they started ranting people's insults. Probably they would tame down now. But the fact of the matter is that boy yo xamantene yow nga dugal len university naka lañ fa ñëwé ban requirements la ñam, let put their papers out there. I think at some point somebody need to investigate all those matters and of course know what exactly the facts are. You tell us that Talib is arrogant, but you are the one who was busy insulting Barrow day in day out. Yow lan nga fi waxut Adama Barrow, lan nga fi waxut nguur bu fi taw, ay waxi yaradeku amul waxi yaradeku lo xamantene mënul ko imagine that you never said about this government. But today you spit and swallowed all your spit, and now you're working in that government and you're trying to even insult other people for the same government that you claim to be clueless, the leader that you said knows nothing and cannot govern. And you want to tell us that, oh, what Talib is saying because he's got his experiences. Of course, what he said made a lot of sense. He's got an experience of being elected as a mayor and, of course, re-elected as a mayor. Where were you elected? You were probably elected as a staff association president and you were arrogantly telling us rubbish. Aside that, where were you elected? Before Jawara became whatever, where was he elected? So in terms of track record and leadership, the young man has a point. It's either you are deliberately, neglecting those facts and trying to actually distort facts with your fabrications and things. One thing about that young man is you cannot make him angry. And one thing about Gambians and, of course, dead UDP supporters, you cannot turn their minds. It doesn't feel like UDP like be. This guy is arrogant because he does not want Dabo to run. Do you think you like Dabo? If you like Dabo, why didn't you support him in 2021? Why did you claim to be neutral when you are on the ground acting shady and having meetings with Barrow? Bro, yo, Munofi has Ken. And again, using a government institutions platform to actually see NPP, even where key NPP members are ministers, they will not use their own platforms to see that. They will not use government platforms to see that. Because they actually understand professionalism and utmost respect for state institutions. And you as an academician, as a professor from a university, you should have known better and acted better. Why is a whole be mola komunul may? Because boy be dengan kogis ngen bany boy be amulen dara lolen koy bany. There are a lot of people within the space who felt that it must be them, and if it is not them, they don't want anybody. Because I'm not being a jahaluma about a Gambian. When I'm a Gambian, we want you to progress, but not better than them. Of course, you want to see the young man progress, but not better than you. Yana bon, yana sohor, yana sis, yana inyan. Why na kalebi nagdun len domalde? Wow. And we hope that the opposition could all come together and understand that some of this rhetoric is not for their own good. It's a way to divide so that you people can continue to enjoy whatever, because you are at the peak. This is your biggest ambition, and now you probably got it because Barrow knows. Barrow is more or less a transactional, politician who is a businessman and understands how to do business and, of course, do political business. And, of course, you are tools for political business. You got to respect people to be respected. Nala futara wolto de. Nala ya fo tile bulo nga fale wularo. Nala ya fo nya wularo nga fale sinending. Ide mo neka Gambia. Let's even compare you and Talib. He has more discipline than you. He's more charismatic than you. He's more humble than you, And of course, he has more respect than you. And you turn around and want to tell us that person is arrogant. Yo ya fi neka social media di sagante ak nini. Yaay dem toog rajo di saagante ak ñoom Idin Sap ak ñeneen ñi. Yaa fi toog di saaga ñoom Madi Jobaate fii nii. Yaa fi toogoon sax di saaga Adama Barrow. Yow Talib kan moo ko fi gis muy saaga nit? Kan mooy wax fii ne dafa gis Talib muy saaga ay président? Kan mooy gis mu wax ne Talib dafa doon saaga ay staffam? Doo leen ko munte wax rek, the dude is so calm and cool and collected. That is the leader. It's not like you, who is just a follower and, of course, very fraudulent in the way you actually, carry yourself and turn around and try to tell us that, oh, Talib is a bad person. No, he's arrogant. He's not aware. And then look at his narrow-mindedness and in his analytical approach, telling us that, of course, he told you that only 35% said they were going to vote for the regime. Of course, the remainder of the people, either they said they are going to vote for the opposition or they remain silent. They are all saying that they are not going to vote for the regime. Therefore, where they are in terms of, abstaining themselves, that means that they are not in support of the regime. So we can generally conclude that, of course, over 65% is not with the regime, and the regime only got 35%. So what is wrong in that? You see, in political analysis and, of course, data analytics, sometimes you actually analyze it in the angle that you think it suits what your expected results are. So you are not the only person within the space who understands how research works. Just like there is no methodological monocropping, there cannot be, a monopoly of analytical explanations. We can all have the same results and we explain it differently, depending on the need or, of course, the satisfactions we want to derive from it. But I man get to nyamoti de. Ita man get to nyamoti. Kuo kujo yada nyimansa kunda yadala kata purka da. Gambia be d'accord tala ko nim var be kering mol yede sambo min ke var mo se den Talib la fede ko le doya te bo doya la munala. That you can even say that Talib is arrogant. Where did you see his arrogance? Because that is not visible anywhere. But compared to you, in my own presence, I could visibly feel outright arrogance and ignorance in your face, trying to talk down on somebody whom you think is just a driver or an auxiliary staff and should not tell you what you should do. And you want to tell us that the commission and, of course, how he was trying to dive certain things. Ismaila, tell us how certain people got admissions into the university. Tell us how you, as a staff of the university, can turn around and be a vendor of that same university. Tell us how you could fraudulently try to actually downplay the, the right process of appointing, a certain person into a graduate assistant position. Tell us how. There's so many things that would have happened. Tell us how you concluded that the regime, at a time when it just came to power within 2 months, that it was not youth friendly simply because it did not have you as a minister. Your biggest ambition was to become a minister, and that is basically what you fought for, and of course got that. And now you would no longer insult the president because you were insulting him simply because he did not appoint you, and not because you care about the Gambian people. Because at a time, the government that was just less than 5-6 months, what could you definitely tell them to do after 22 years of what we describe as a malgovernance and of course a dictatorship? Waaye tey yow yaa ñu wax ne nguur boobu moo fi gën a baax moo fi gën a def lu baax waaye yow démba yaa ñu doon wax ne nguur boobu moo fi gën a yées moo fi gën a bon ku ko jiite moo fi gën a ñàkk a xam-xam. It's the same person that is saying that. Yow mënoo xas Talib man sambu de ha bu waxtu jàng jotee dem na ji jàng bu waxtu dellu si jotee dellu si na mu establish ay compagnie am bu waxtu liggéey jotee liggéey na. Ayo nga dox di sambu ay yeneen dëkk yu kenn xamul lan mooy sambu yow nga toog nga naan yow da ngay xas nit mi yàlla nga manke muslimo fa nga daaji kooti da koy kana modo le doya wala al nga ñoo doya tuje ni be politiko kele to ñanin tilo la kam idata UDP ning Talib findi la ñoo kam because hana tara wala problem o so ni te ko be daadu na je fon be la problem o to la jele da male ka fuka do yalon nako iteta kala moti mi yalon ko itebe kamme fon sabatin la wal tema. So you cannot even come pretending to say, oh no, he's arrogant, that's why he did. Talib never said Dabo should not run for president. Where did he say that? But that is your own fabrication and your own framing and your own creation, simply because you want to, be very diabolical in trying to actually, make the guy look very bad. When in reality, you and him on a scale, you probably weigh 0 and he's probably 95. And you want a digger. You are a minister, and of course, you're probably doing what you could in that ministry, but there are moments that you actually saw outright on unimaginable level of arrogance and ignorance. You gotta let people be, man. Atole mune lomol ma mil la nyimbanko ka. Atole atina fon sai mo buka hanyi diama na ni diama de ba fa ko nyin karanal. Ya fusol. Itola ka fo jan dundung ya fo jan dandam, because the characteristics that some of you depict is a shame to intellectuals in this country. Barrow's cabinet has most people from the University of the Gambia. Because Barrow picked the people we think are actually intellectuals. Professor Gomez is from the University of the Gambia. The Minister of Education is from the University of the Gambia. You yourself are from the University of the Gambia. Barrow picked almost 3 of you from the university, thinking that these are, of course, people landed, educated, and have the capacity to, of course, lead this country. Yeah, fools. Many beje wala do wala barete ito wala ko fo malode ya fo jan dundung ya fo dandandang. Of course that might be your responsibility to spin, but don't turn around and of course be caricaturing and trying to ridicule, castigate and insult other people, or even trying to label them, because you're no better. And you're trying to tell us that, telling Dabo not to run is basically arrogance. What is more arrogant than telling the president you are clueless? What is more arrogant telling the president that you basically don't know how to govern a country? What is more arrogant than... Talib was never arrested for his words and probably being unmeasured, but you were once, of course, arrested for being unmeasured, for constantly caricaturing and, of course, even trying to demean the personality of the president. That is arrogance. And when you say, the dude is a coward is the person who actually gets people admissions fraudulently. A coward is a person who actually fraudulently works in a university and turn around to be a vendor in that university. An arrogant person is the one that actually looks at your fellow staff due to them being your subordinate and you tell them, no, I don't even know how much money I'm paid in this institution. Arrogance. But I just want to call it at that. But I don't think this guy has anything to say to anybody in this country. And then the opposition front, UDP or whatever, because I saw a few people from the UDP posted that particular thing. Moro. Reflective thinking will tell you who the persons, who these persons are. If they claim to be your associates today, trying to call them model fight New York, and because of their own interest, they don't care about either at all. New will comment. Ndanga alon ko UDP more mini alon ko deep down in their heart they don't hate Talib. And of course, if you want to compare equally ko Talib fele Ismaila fele mo killing take on hani mo killing na yerita, or maybe for na mari balafate. Molo Horomayale, Molo Bunyale, Mola Masakunda run in the way it is, because that ministry and of course the people that work there are paid by taxpayers' money. You cannot use that to run your partisan politics to insult, castigate and ridicule other people trying to demean them. If NPP has cause to settle with UMC, let them do it on their political platforms. You cannot use state platforms to actually write those nonsenses, and when you actually face backlashes, shamelessly you refuse to actually delete it, and you want to come and tell us that this dude is arrogant. Yours is arrogance. The biggest arrogant person, the most arrogant person is the person who refused to delete that nonsense you posted on a state institution's page, that you realize that it was not meant for that institution. To actually accept that of course you erred is basically noble, but deliberately refusing to acknowledge that you actually made a mistake is arrogance. Kon yow ya arrogant. Alamati loto di alabadi.